every now and then there would be a like post of me on some random gang member's Twitter from being in court, but they're always like, it's fine, don't worry about it. We actually got an email one time about like every prosecutor that has been killed in the line of duty, and it's like 15, and I think 12 of them were in Texas, and like 8 of those they had a duel with the person they were prosecuting the night before the trial and settled it on the OK Corral, high noon, quick draw at 3.
Sometimes life brings people into your life where you meet them and you go, I've known this guy for my entire life. Yeah, you've only known him for a few minutes. And that's kind of what I have with Jordan Ostroff. Now, Jordan, you will get to hear from him in just a second. I'm thrilled that he's in studio with us today. He is co-owner of Driven, which is a law firm. And I met him when it wasn't Driven. He's actually recently done a rebrand, and we may get into that a little bit. But he's got a great story of, for lack of a better term, rags to riches, but some of it was he created his own rags, and we got to figure that out. And then he worked his way out in true bootstrapping fashion. And if I may say, he is a unicorn. He might be a T-Rexicorn, at least that's what I think his son would say, but Jordan Ostroff here, the T-Rexicorn on Bootstrapped Unicorns. Welcome.
Thanks, Josh. It was great meeting you in the parking lot 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know. We're fast friends.
Just kidding.
So I need to help our audience have a baseline. So they know you own Driven. When we met, you had, what was the name of the law firm back then? I'm so used to it being Driven now.
Jordan Law.
Jordan Law, that's right. Okay, that's his name. All right, it was an ego law.
Because Ostroff no one was going to get, so.
But it is Ostroff. I have to say it better. It's not Ostroff.
Yeah, it's Russian, not Irish.
Got it. Okay. Well, Russian Jewish, right?
Right.
So we're actually both Russian Jewish. Pies is pronounced like pies. But okay, I got it. And so when Jordan Law became a thing, was that the first name you gave it when you?
Yes, I knew Ostroff Law did not have legs.
Okay. And so when you launched your law firm, though, we will call it Jordan Law because that's what it was.
Yes.
And when did that start? What was the year?
2015, October 5th.
Okay, October 5th of 2015, you start a law firm. I'm guessing because you were a lawyer.
So I was a prosecutor, and I enjoyed the work until I didn't. I tell everybody, like, start out as a PD or a prosecutor, you get a ton of experience, you can learn everything on somebody else's dime, and then there's normally that moment where you sort of expire from enjoying it, either overwork, underpaid, the monotony of it, something like that. And so that came for me about 3 years into it, at which point I was like, all right, let's start a firm and see what happens. Okay, so out of curiosity, and this is almost off topic for our show, but I knew you were a prosecutor, but suddenly I have this whole, movie playing in my head of you asking the murderer or would-be alleged murderer, some really deep questions, and then you having to, look over your shoulder as you're going home in the car and all of these clandestine things. I'm guessing it probably wasn't that, but maybe it was. What was prosecuting like for you? It was not like that. I mean, there was every now and then there would be a post of me on some random gang member's Twitter from being in court, but they're always like, it's fine, don't worry about it. We actually got an email one time about every prosecutor that has been killed in the line of duty, and it's 15, and I think 12 of them were in Texas, and 8 of those they had a duel with the person they were prosecuting the night before the trial and settled it on the OK Corral, high noon, quick draw at 3. Were any of those modern then? The description is very Old West. There was one who had been killed in line of duty in whatever year that was, so somewhere between 2012 and 2015, which is what brought it up. There were some that were 50s, 60s draw. There was, 1 or 2 that were mob-related in the 80s, but it was actually, a lot lower than you would think from, how many police officers, how many other law enforcement have those frontline issues. Oh, so the movies are sensational then? Every now and then there would be some stories of, I shouldn't say stories, there were some real cases that were so ridiculous that I don't think you could even make it into a movie, but ultimately, obviously, thank God for everybody who is in law enforcement that you're not dealing with a Michael Bay film every single day. Yeah, right. So you leave your non-Michael Bay film and you think, all right, I'm done with prosecuting, and what do you do to open a law firm? Great question. Officially, or what did I do? Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, so officially, you fill out paperwork with the county for tax purposes, with the city for tax purposes. You get a name, or I got a tax ID number for Jordan Law, and then I found an office. I don't even know. I guess the Florida bar would require an e-service location, which could be your house, and then you officially quit the prosecutor's office, so you don't have the conflict of interest. And really, like, ta-da! You are a law firm. Blessed.
And then you stand on the street corner with a sign, "Will lawyer for food?"
Well, so that I think probably would be unethical. Potentially soliciting. Right. Yeah, well, so I had the benefit. My wife was a PD. I was a state attorney. We actually met in court on opposite sides. Thankfully, never had an actual case against each other. And so she was able to, like, fill in for me how to be a defense attorney, how to file the paperwork and those things. But by being a prosecutor, there were so many other defense attorneys I had worked with that I interviewed like 20 or 30 of them about what's the difference? Like, when you go from having an office to running, from being a prosecutor to running your own office, what are the changes like? And a ton of people gave me great advice, and a number of them gave me some cases to work on or do some coverage work at the beginning to keep me going until I was able to build up like an actual book of business myself. Okay,
at what point did you say, this might be working?
The second day.
Really?
Well, at that point, I was in what we call general felony at the time. So that was prosecuting basically everything up into intentional murder. So like unintentional deaths, burglary, robbery with a firearm, those kind of things. So it was people who go to prison for the rest of their life. I was making like $49,000 a year. And so I was like, all right, I left October 3rd, started October 5th. And I was like, as long as I make 10 grand by the end of the year, like, that's proof of concept for me. And so on my second day, somebody walked in and I quoted them, $5 grand for one case that I would have had 60 of when I was the state attorney. And they paid me eventually all of it. And I was like, this might be a real thing.
Wow. All right. So was the plan to be a solopreneur, or did you have in the back of your mind, or maybe even out loud, a plan to grow and scale your practice?
I'm honored that you think I had a plan other than...
Well, you're a guy who has a plan now. Correct. I know you as a planner now.
Because of this experience.
Okay.
I had to Andy Dufresne my way through the tunnel of crap to find my Mexico City wonderful...
So as you were paddling through, I know there's quite a story here. I want the whole story.
Yeah.
A part of me wants to jump to the holy crap moment where you're like, these numbers are no longer lining up and I feel a load of debt. But did that happen fast? Did that happen slow? At what point did you go, oh crap?
I was so successful that I could destroy everything so quickly. And so what I mean by that, so I came up to Orlando to go to UCF. I stayed here to go to law school at Barry. I was a prosecutor here. I opened a firm here. So by the time I started, I had been doing, fake mock trials since UCF for like 10 years with people who were attorneys, who became attorneys, judges, whatever. So I had a good network, even though I had no idea what that meant or what to do with it or how to actually network or genuinely have a conversation with another human being from a sort of business sense. So I had a great run for the first, 5 or 6 months where like a lot of people that I had known for 10 years were like, great, I'll send you all my criminal stuff. People I went to law school with were like, oh, I've been sending to so-and-so, but they, hung a shingle on day one. You've got all this experience. Let me try it. And so from that, I had probably like $300-400 grand coming in referrals. Yeah, that exactly. So I was like, oh, I'll hire a marketing company. This will be amazing. Like if I can do this as an idiot, they have to know what they're doing, and like we'll be $1 million firm in 2 years. Not how it worked, or not how it worked for me.
Don't tell me what marketing company, but
all of them. So we don't even need to.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, and so in retrospect, this was sort of my problem. I was like, oh, I'll buy leads from Nolo, and I'll hire this dude on Craigslist to run Facebook ads, and I'll get these things over here from Avo, and I'll be on this, and I'll do this.
Scattershot.
And I'll send mailers, and I'll do text messages to people who got arrested, and I don't think I put the time and money and energy into any of them enough. I don't think any of the companies asked me the right questions about what sort of cases I actually wanted. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know my ideal client. So it was just like spray and pray. And my prayers were not answered.
So I'm assuming you didn't actually have an official budget for it either, where it's like, when my dad used to go to the casino a lot. And he would tell me things that he wouldn't live up to for himself. But he's like, if you're going to go to the casino, you go with what you're willing to lose. You know, take $1,000. If you can part with that $1,000, you go have a great time. If you leave with more than $1,000, awesome. If you leave less with less $1,000, also awesome, because you were prepared to lose it, but you can still eat tomorrow because the rest of your money's at home. And of course, he would go to the casino, bring $1,000 that he was willing to lose and $10,000 that he wasn't willing to lose, and then stuff could happen. But I'm wondering where you were. I mean, did you have a budget where you're like, I can lose this money on marketing and still survive?
No. No. And Josh, what's the biggest I want to say like snake oily sales pitch of every marketing campaign?
God, I mean, there's so many of them,
Oh no,
honestly.
there's a definitive answer. Are you ready?
I am.
One case and this will pay for itself. One client and this will pay for itself. One whatever and this will pay for itself. And then you do 1,000 things for $500 each for 0 cases to come in, and next thing you know, you're out 50 grand for nothing.
Because you didn't get your one case.
For any of them. Yeah, like it just takes one case for this to be worth it. It just takes one client. It just takes one contract. It just takes whatever. That, I think, is the easiest way to lose the most money.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and I think the one case thing, or the one sale of any kind, it works in a lot of situations, provided there is reason to believe that works. And that requires planning and some evidence-based, like, oh, for the last 400 businesses that have tried this, there's a statistic to say that there's payoff over X amount of time. Like, you can dig in. I mean, I was actually just doing this the other day. You know, I went to Social Media Marketing World's website. I was digging in because I was looking for a statistic to help one of our clients feel better about the hard work they're doing, because it's been like 3 weeks, and payoff comes a little bit later with what we're doing. I mean, they need the patience to do 3 to 6 months before the work we're doing with them is going to bear some fruit. And I can get into why on a different conversation, but I know it's going to work for them. They just got to, you know, they committed, they believed, then they had the fear, and so I'm helping them with that. And strategy was already backed up with good reason and statistics, but I needed more, so I found it. And I think the one shot thing, there's like, oh, I just need that one sale and all of it pays for itself, does work, provided that your eyes are actually wide open on it.
Well, so let's do this with an example.
Yeah.
Who's a normal listener here? What's their job?
Well, most of our listeners are going to be solopreneurs and small business entrepreneurs.
Okay, so give me a small business.
Let's take a virtual assistant company that, you know, places VAs in other small businesses. So they're kind of like a PEO HR outsourcing business.
Okay, so from that standpoint, you are a business, you're trying to work with other similar sized businesses. So if this is, hey, $500 to sponsor the nationwide Chamber of Commerce for solopreneurs, that's a much different room than for you to spend $500 to run an ad in the local pizza shop for anybody who comes in who looks at page 3 of the menu to decide between the pepperoni pizza and the meat lovers if they need a VA.
Right, exactly.
But I never had that conversation, and none of the companies that took my $500 ever had that conversation. So it was a question of like literally I put an ad in a local bar, and I don't even know if it ever ran. I may have just been completely scammed out of the money. I have no clue. Because I didn't know my ideal client. I didn't know what cases I wanted. I didn't think through any of these things. So if you are here and you are listening to this, please, please, please take what Josh is saying to heart, because it will save you so much money that you don't have, and it will get you the cases that you do want or the clients that you do want. And it will be so much better the more that you say no to the stupid stuff to focus on the better things.
No is a powerful word.
That it is.
Yeah. So you've spent a lot of money in this story.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I mean, were you married at this point?
I was, yeah. I was married before I opened.
How was Heather on this notion that, oh man, we just spent a lot of money? How was should the relationship side of entrepreneurship get skipped a lot? And so I'm just curious, like, what was that conversation like?
Sure. So like I said, my wife and I met on opposite sides. She left the PD's office before I left the state. She went to private work and didn't like private work for the opposite reason she liked the PD's office. So she ended up actually teaching civics at middle school for this year. we can get into more stories there. In essence, my wife felt safer in the jail with her clients than she did in a middle school with the middle school students, and I don't blame her. And so with that, we're like, all right, you have a steady income. We can live off your income. You have health insurance. We'd be fine with that. Like, I can make this jump. And so that's why I was like, hey, in 3 months, if I can make 10 grand, I'll be very happy. And it was, you know, I beat it in whatever it was, like 2 weeks. So that was good. It was, and then I think that she saw the benefit of what I was doing, wasn't as interested in reeling me back for my crazy ideas, like sponsoring the local pizza menu or, you know, whatever it was. Until she left the teaching stuff and came to work for the firm. And I mean, she owned 50% from day one, but just she had a real job. That's the point that we started really having the relationship as part of the business, which honestly sucked for the first several months, but then got really good once we kind of figured out where everybody's focus was, and once we realized, like, she's a realistic, normal human being, and I'm a flighty, crazy person when it comes to business ideas. So, like, if both of us think it's a great idea, huzzah, those were few and far between.
It feels right, though, that they're few and far between. You know, it's not every idea gets to be a good idea. And not every idea necessarily gets to be a bad idea.
And as Steve Jobs would tell you, Apple says no to good ideas 100 times a day.
Yeah, right. That makes a lot of sense. Because sometimes it's a timing thing. I think that, you know, I have a lot of good ideas. I think you know, the visionary implementer dichotomy. I think you're a visionary implementer. I think you've got both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I tragically do too. And unfortunately, what that means is you have 100 good ideas and the balls to try them. And so having people around who are implementers, who can shut some of the visionary down, is actually really important, because a whole bunch of our ideas, they might not be wrong, but they may not be right timed. And I'm learning that the hard way for myself. I've got a lot of poorly timed ideas, and I'm learning to cry as I shut them down in my head. But I write them down and I pocket them.
Right.
You know. And are you experiencing something, and maybe still, but at least back then, where you had this visionary implementer? I think it's positive to have both in the room, but it's a bit of a dichotomy.
I mean, look, it's at some point it's a question of realism. And, like, I don't mean that from the standpoint, is the idea real? I mean, can you actually really execute it on the way that it needs? Do you have the money? Do you have the skills? Do you have the time? Do you have the energy? And there comes a point at the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey where you don't know. And so it's like, what are the right experiments I want to run? For me, that was all these different marketing strategies, and I just kept learning the same lesson of I didn't have the right foundation. I didn't have the consistent sales process. I didn't have the tracking. I didn't have the ideal client. I didn't have an actual marketing plan. And unfortunately, I had to blow like $200,000 we didn't have to get in the... Can I curse?
Oh, fuck yeah.
To get into the shit to learn this lesson. Or these lessons. So please, take them for free now. Seriously.
Yeah, no, and very much take them for free now, because you know I've been there too.
Yeah.
Where, I've just gone too far and then spent a lot of time reeling it back. Which, by the way, if you are not in the Bootstrapped Unicorns group on Facebook, go join it, first of all. It's free, and there's a lot of good conversation in there. But we just had this should we swear in business conversation on there. And sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not. And we've kind of generally arranged it, like, read the room. And so in this room, if you're ever on the show, it's okay. And if you're watching this show, don't have the kids in the room. Sorry. So with that said, just like a caveat, and please join us. And Jordan's in there and always contributing, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to. You ask different questions in a good way.
Okay.
It's not the same, like, bullshit, like, everybody tag somebody that would benefit from being in the group stuff. It's like, no, like, let's actually talk about an issue that has both sides, like the cursing stuff, like the, you know, what's the first book to read when you're going into coaching, you know, those kind of things where there are a number of right answers.
Yeah, right. And I want that debate, because I think what it does for us is when we've got people who are vocal like you have an opinion, you have a reason for your opinion, and you speak up. And then somebody else gets the benefit of your 2 cents, and somebody else will speak up, and maybe it's similar, different, reaffirming, an opposing idea, whatever it is. They get the benefit of that part too. We have a lot of people just watching the conversations, but I'm hearing now from people who are like, oh yeah, I'd never thought of it that way. That was good. And so that's why the show exists, and that's why the conversations exist. So seriously, join us. But let's get back on track.
One thing on those. The thing though that I want to echo, or I want to add to that, is you shouldn't always be concerned about the what that people are saying. Sometimes we need to know why they're saying it that way.
Yes.
And I don't even mean it from a bias standpoint. Like, I am wearing a pink T-Rex shirt. I want to be approachable. I think cursing a little bit makes me less of a stuffy lawyer, makes me more approachable.
I agree.
So, like, by putting together this holistic concept, I can tell you, like, I personally curse because of this reason, and you can decide, like, if you are a small business owner working with churches to put on, AV for the sermon, probably not the right fit for you.
Right, yeah. So not only read the room, but also understand your personal brand.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And for me, I used to employ so many, blue-collar Vietnam vets that they trained me in the way of the swear word, and I didn't even know how much I was being trained. Thankfully, I turned it off in church. So that's good, right?
There you go.
So back on track.
And we're here, with Veterans Day, so thank you for your service. Anybody who was
absolutely, yeah. I am a proud civvy in the sense that I'm proud of what you've done, and my kids have a measure of freedom because of you, and so does your son.
Yeah.
When you spent all that money, you had $200,000 gone. I know you had a pivot point where you started making new decisions and changing the game. And you and I have spent a lot of time talking about, because you've got real defined clarity on what you implemented to right the ship and build a great business. I don't necessarily know that anybody comes with an aha moment where you suddenly have all of the answers to straighten things out. Where did you start from that point of, I've got to fix this? What was the first thing you did to start changing the narrative for you?
So I don't remember the exact day, but I can get pretty close. My kid was born on March 2nd of 2018. So this story takes place when my wife told me she was pregnant. So backtrack, 35, 36 weeks from that time. So it's mid-2017. I love hot sauce. It's important for the story. And so my wife took my hot sauce thing and put a label on it that was like hot daddy or sauce daddy or whatever it was, like I'm pregnant. We had been trying for a kid for a year at that time. And so I was sitting down to eat dinner, and I go to grab the hot sauce, and I see the label, and I was just like floored. I didn't drop it. I don't know what happened for the first, several seconds. Super happy we've been trying for this. And then there was like that split moment of like, holy shit, how the fuck are we going to do this? We're $200,000 in debt on the firm. Forget student loans, forget mortgage, like just on the firm. We're both working 60, 70 hours a week. We're making almost no money. And now we're going to have a kid. As a friend mentioned, it's like you're drowning in a pool that's on fire and then somebody hands you a baby. God, and that
is frightening.
Right?
Oh my God.
It's the best analogy. And that was my moment. It was like, oh my God, things have to change. So at the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018, I cut a $120,000 a year marketing spend to zero. I was like, we're getting rid of everything, of all the mailers, of all the ads, of all the bought leads. We'll see what happens. At the very least, we can, wrap up some cases into March, and I'll have more time for my son. And so at the end of 2017 to the end of 2018, with $120,000 less spent, my firm made $5,000 less. And that is not to tell you that the marketing was that bad. We filled in some of the difference based upon doing a great job for clients and getting more referrals and whatnot. But like, I saved $120,000 to lose $5,000 at the end of the next year. And that was when I was like, all right, now that we have some profitability, that wasn't enough to pay off $200,000 in debt, but it was enough to get it in control where it's not, a credit card maxed out at $75,000 on it at 29% interest or whatever. I was like, all right, now we can redo this. And so like the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, it was bringing some stuff in-house. It was really going back to the basics of this stuff. And then I started talking to all my lawyer friends of like, hey, I don't hate my life anymore. Like, this is great. So a couple of them asked if we could sort of do the same thing for them. So myself and Greg, who ended up being my business partner on a marketing company, started helping them into the end of 2019. And then 2020, I actually launched a marketing company for lawyers once we saw enough proof of concept that these things would work. And then, you know, I've since been bought out, so I'm a marketing freelancer now, I guess. Although I don't really sell marketing freelance services, but no longer.
What do you do now?
Yeah, great question. So I have a law firm, and then I also coach other lawyers on becoming the CEO of their law firm, also getting them out of the day-to-day. And then that's like 3 days a week. So then I started pickleball this week.
Wow.
Fucking love it. I'm totally happy to be a 70-year-old man.
Why is it that it's so addictive for people? Like, I'm not willing, well, first of all, I'm not healthy enough right now after the car accident to do active things like that. But the temptation is in 24 to try it. But I'm afraid that I'll like it. And that's the problem. Why is pickleball, why is it called pickleball?
I don't know.
Because there's no pickles.
Well, so it's called a pickle. So my third game ever, we won 11-0. So we pickled the other team. That's the.
So when you goose egg them,
it's a pickle.
It's not a goose egg. It's a pickle.
Apparently, that's what I was told. So.
Wow. So they named it after the rare occurrence that you dominate your opponent. I
have no idea. Basically, it's like
the philosophy of pickles.
A wiffle ball, and you're hitting with feels like a ping pong paddle, but it's about the size of a racquetball with sort of like tennis rules with squash.
Are you familiar with Kelvin and Hobbes?
Yes.
Do you remember Kelvin ball?
No.
The only rule was that there were no rules.
Gotcha. There are rules in pickleball, but it makes it fun. Like it's like it seems slow, but it's weirdly fast. Like you look up and it's an hour and a half later and you're drenched in sweat and you've gotten 8,000 steps, but you don't feel like, oh my God, this is miserable in between. You're like, oh, I'm just hitting a wiffle ball with a ping pong paddle. So that's how they get you.
Oddly, you're selling me on it.
Thank you. And Gary Vee has a team. The New Jersey 5 professional.
But he would professionalize anything other than a professional sport. Gary Vee still blows my mind. You're still a fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to him on the way here, and honestly, he hasn't changed that much. He's still beating the same drum.
So I paid to go hear Gary Vee speak at one of those like crazy multi-level marketing scheme conferences.
I kind of love those.
Dude, it was $50 to sit like in the 12th row. It was so worth it. So 16 people I've never heard of get up there and they're like, I went into Singapore and started this and I did this. And I was like, I don't know who you are, but congratulations. And for $2,500 a month, I'll show you how to sell crypto to 12-year-olds in Taiwan, whatever. And then Gary Vee gets up there and he's like, I'm not one of those assholes that just gets on stage and tries to sell you stuff. I'm going to say the same stuff I say everywhere on the internet for free. And here it goes. And it was awesome. And it was everything he says everywhere else. And I learned nothing. And it was awesome. And I loved every minute of it. And
yeah, you know, it's funny. You learn nothing from Gary Vee, yet that level of reinforcement and the little tidbits that you do pull out of it, if you're willing to just like play it while you're driving consistently, are good. Like I'm listening to him right now and he's, you know, the underpriced attention that you can get on LinkedIn, he is very sold on. And a statistic he shared just today, or I say he shared just today, I played this podcast today, that with 1 2-minute video, he has on LinkedIn gotten more traffic than CNBC does in a day. And that alone, even though it didn't teach me anything, it reminded me the scalable power of consistent social media content. So what you could do with a single post, maybe, you know, that viral nature of like the, you know, the Hail Mary and maybe you win and you get the viral, that's not a lesson. But his is consistency has bred this.
Dude, I had, so not exactly right at COVID, but let's say like from June of 2020 to June of 2021, I had like 500,000 views on LinkedIn. It was insane. And they led to clients and they led to cases and virtual speaking engagements and whatnot from that.
Right.
But like that was like me and one other person in Orlando and then like some people in the Philippines together putting this stuff out there for 500,000 impressions.
And what price point would you put on the cost of creating all of that?
20 grand.
Oh my God.
Maybe.
So cheap.
And then it turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales and speaking engagements that led to other sales and referrals from people that I haven't talked to in person for 14 months at that point because of COVID and everything. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
A while ago, you and I did a series of videos that had a pretty defined process specifically for law firms. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask you some details. And there's no way, I mean, we did hours of content. You can't tell the whole story here. But I know you implemented that in Jordan Law, which is now Driven Law. And some of that has some content in there. And this is a terrible segue, by the way. Like, as segues go, this is one of the worst ones where it's like...
You're not driving off a cliff.
I'm not quite, but here we go. I would love for you to share from that point of expertise that you've got a successful strategy and tactics and all of the things. What is the name of that strategy? If there is a cool name, share it. And then what's the bullet points or the outline of what that is?
Sure. I wish I had a cool name. I'm going to say it's things that are commonsensical after you do them, but aren't commonsensical before you do them.
I think that's the subheading.
But it's true. Because here, look, I'm going to come back to create a fucking marketing plan. These are the types of cases I want. This is the number of cases that I want. This is how I think I'm going to get them. And then, ideal client. This is who I want those cases to come from. Ideal referral source. This is who those people would go to when they have a need that goes over my thing. It's so simple, basic. I don't know. But, nobody says this. And I get it's because... from Gary Vee is a lot more on the mindset of being an entrepreneur and the kindness and stuff, or a very specific platform. But I would take that concept of LinkedIn and then say, hey, I want to work with other law firm owners who have a $750,000 a year or more firm to coach them on being a CEO. Great, they're going to be on LinkedIn. Whereas from my law firm standpoint, I want to work with people that are blue collar professionals injured through the negligence of another. Probably not the same LinkedIn ability.
Yeah,
sure, it's Meta. There. Yeah, and Instagram. I mean, and if you follow Driven Law on Facebook, we do the terrible Florida man stories with really bad dad puns. Not terrible stories. Terrible dad puns for the crazy Florida man stories. Guy throws an iguana into Wendy's, mad that he only got 4 chicken nuggets or whatever Wendy's nuggets are.
Yeah.
Chicken nuggets. Anyway, stuff like that. And because if you're a teacher, a realtor, a cop, that blue collar professional, it's funny enough. And then when you go to the page and follow us, now you can see oh, here's a client raving about us. Here's everybody at the office talking about our favorite burgers for National Burger Day. Here's a tip on why you should make sure you have UM coverage. We can work those things together behind a real cohesive brand. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's a lot more me telling other law firm owners how to run their firm similar to how I ran mine, as opposed to talking directly to a consumer of personal injury law. And
that sounds like a lot of common sense, but the fact is you've written this down. You actually have a plan.
Yes, I do. It's I think it's 17 pages on a marketing plan.
Right. So, you put thought into this. There's reasoning. You understand who your ideal clients are in 2 directions. And you actually... is it a time-based plan too, or is it just directions?
No. So look, I'll tell you what. For anybody listening to this, if you email me, I will send you our marketing plan.
That's outstanding. How do they email you?
Jordan@drivenlaw.com. Everything is spelled normally.
All right, so what you do is you say, in the heading, you put Bootstrapped Unicorns, so he'll recognize it because he doesn't get that in his inbox very often. And just one-liner, hey, Jordan, I want to see that marketing plan, and maybe say hello.
To be fair, my assistant will send it to you. So Bootstrapped Unicorns on the subject is perfect because then I can tell her to track from that.
Yeah, perfect. And then also, we'll get some data, are you actually listening and paying attention? I like that.
And so basically what we did is we do it by the year. So actually I'll be working on the 2024 one. And so we start off with the overall goals of how many cases we want. We break it down into where those are going to come from. From referrals, we break it down into other lawyers, into medical providers, into centers of influence. Then we have what we do for those people over the course of the year to build those relationships. Then we go into social media and content. So we've got 52 questions for PI stuff, for getting to know everybody at the office, for whatever it is that can go into a content strategy. And then at the end, we have important dates. So we've got real holidays on there. We've got everybody's birthdays, everybody's anniversary of working at the firm. And then we found like Distracted Driver Awareness Month for April, or I Like Pizza, National Pizza Day, and whenever that is, those kind of things.
You know, National Find a Penny Day, if that's a thing, comes the day before National Tap Dancing Day. And I love that, because if you find enough pennies and you have Scotch tape, you can celebrate National Tap Dancing Day by putting the pennies on your shoes.
Tap dancing, yeah.
Yeah, and tap dancing. So I think these pseudo-holidays need to be better planned like that one was. I mean, the Pizza Day should come on Pi Day, in my opinion. It should be on March 14th, but I don't believe it is.
No.
Because it's just a dad joke. It's like a ready dad joke.
But that's National Pie Day.
It is National Pie Day, but I think National Pie Day and National Pizza Pie Day should be the same day. Well, and it's National Me Day.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I have gotten that my entire life. In fact, in 8th grade, somebody pointed that out, that Pi Day was actually my day. So in 9th grade, I refused to sign my name. I only signed it like Prince. It was the pi symbol. And I actually, my first semester in high school, I had straight A's technically, but there were a couple of classes where I had like piles of zeros because the teachers were like striking against me that they refused to recognize the symbol. And it went to the principal, who was a very free spirit, who looked at it and went, "That's awesome, grade them." And so then I won, and for 4 years, I only signed my name as a pi symbol.
I think you need to bring it back.
Bringing pi sign back.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
And I want like a gold chain.
Actually, you know what? I used to have a high.
Yeah.
And it looks so much like a pi symbol.
It does.
That I wore that, a gold high for years. I need to find that.
Yeah, there we go. High Pie.
Oh, God.
The Josh's Sabbath podcast.
You know, you and I could be dangerous together if we hang out more.
You know, the world would be a different place. Better or worse? We'll find out.
Yeah, so Driven Law. Branding and rebranding is actually an interesting thing that we haven't broached on this show at all. And entrepreneurship is definitely the focus of our show. But there's a reality that sometimes your brand needs updating. And so entrepreneurs are going to have that moment where we go, the name doesn't align with what we do. Heck, we're even at that. You know, C47 Films for the longest time focused on feature film production, you know, in the entertainment world and marketing, but it was always with this entertainment focus. And now that we're focusing far more on high volume content creation through video-based podcasting, we are on the edge of a rebrand. So let me sit at the foot of a recent rebrander. Why did you do it? And was there process involved? I know there was. What does that look like?
Sure. All right, so let me start. I wish I brought logos. Anyway, so Jordan Law, if you can picture, was a scale of justice, and then it was in the colors of every professional sports league. So the blue into the white into the red, just like all of them. I thought, hey, it's going to be Jordan Law, not Ostroff Law, Michael Jordan, sportsy, whatever. I wish I could tell you I was that intentional about it in the moment, but like it worked out afterwards because most of my clients were, you know, young 20s criminal defense people, enjoyed sports. We talked about sports, that kind of stuff. So it did sort of work out in the end until we no longer did that, and until Jordan no longer did any of the legal work. So I haven't talked to a client in probably, well, I shouldn't say I haven't talked to a client. I haven't talked to a client from the standpoint of their case as a lawyer in 4 years at this point, and we were Jordan Law for 3 of those 4 years with nobody actually talking to Jordan. So like there was no benefit to it. And our client changed to more of the blue collar professional and into the personal injury. So my wife had the idea of Driven Law. Being a former teacher, she also does handle a lot of cases that involve schools, whether it's the teacher with their license or whether it's unfortunately some sort of injury or sexual situation or whatever at a school. Ooh. Or bullying and what, right. And so driven had the connotation of driving a car and students being driven. Like it was a really cool intersection of those things. And then, you know, I had a marketing company at the time, so they gave us a number of ideas off of it, one of which being a road that turned into a heart. And I was like, sold. Regardless of how happy you are with your logo, send it around before it goes out to like 20 people. Literally, I had people be like, you need to rotate it 180 degrees the other way so that the road goes forward. And when it was the other way, it looked like it was CA for California, which you can't tell on the opposite side. And like that one change, I freaking love my logo. And I didn't pick the name. I didn't create the logo. I thankfully had somebody tell me to flip it. Every time I see it, I'm like, we have the coolest freaking logo.
You do have a good logo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wish I'd brought it.
We'll put it up. Miller will put it on the screen, and poof.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
I trust that will be a thing.
So, no longer so reliant upon me. Makes sense in the practice of law that we're doing. We kept the colors red, white, and blue, but we toned them down a little bit. Like the Jordan Law red was like major eyes bleed. Whereas
it was like horror movie red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool as like pop, but it didn't work as content. Like you couldn't use it as the background of your content. Whereas in the Driven Law side, we can use the red now. It's a lot more muted of the colors. And so like if you see the Jordan Law stuff, it doesn't weirdly stand out, but you can tell the difference in the colors.
Interesting. All right. So there was a lot of intentionality there. What do you do when people knew Jordan Law? So you've got all these referral partners out there. What does the rollout look like in your world? It's not a cookie cutter, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But how do you let the world know that you're driven now?
You know, I have no idea. I wish I could give you a real answer. So for my entire life, wanted to announce an actual child on April Fool's Day when everybody announces a fake child. My kid was born on March 2nd. I'm not having another kid. So I've never had that opportunity. So for the firm rebrand, I was like, all right, well, here we go. You know, April Fool's Day, or is it? We're changing the firm name. And so a ton of, like, I can't even tell you how many people are like, are you actually changing the firm name? And I'm like, would it make sense? Like, was it a funny April Fool's thing if we're not? Like, if that was my lie, would that be funny? And they're like, no. I was like, okay, great. So, like, that got in some people's minds from that perspective. All of our email signatures went to, you know, on whatever it was. I think on May 1st. So we announced it April 1st. On May 1st, we're going to Driven Law. The emails go to the same place. It was on the email signature, the whole thing. We posted it on social a bunch. I talked about it. I told everybody. We threw a party. We do a Cinco de Mayo party every year, which is also my birthday. We announced that as, you know, the Driven Law coming out party, whatever. I still had a referral source that has sent me maybe half a dozen cases a year, like 6 weeks ago, be like, one of my staff members was like, do we send cases to Driven Law? And I was like, who is that? And then I realized it was you. And I was like, yeah, man, you came to the party. I don't know what to tell you. So there's going to be those moments, but nobody has cared. Like, that's the end of it. Like, the phone number is the same. The website will still go to the same place.
Okay, so
whatever.
That's an interesting phrase, nobody's cared about your rebrand, and I get what you mean by that in the sense that it didn't change the DNA of the business per se. The business had become Driven Law probably before Driven Law was a term. Oh, yeah. But
nobody did not hire us because we were no longer Jordan Law. I do think more people have hired us because we are now Driven Law.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, yes. Completely. Like, I can show you the numbers skyrocketing in about the exact same time as the rebrand. I don't think the rebrand was that impactful, but it was definitely very helpful towards it.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me because you wouldn't want to do a rebrand and then go, well, that was a whole bunch of nothing.
Right.
Yeah, so yours actually, you had strategy, the firm was already going that direction, this made sense to you, you implemented. The people you already knew cared because, oh, that's neat, but it didn't change their behavior with you. The rest of the world changed their behavior, though.
Well, and I think that so, like, we started out as criminal defense, now we do PI. So I think there were people that were like, oh, I still see them as sort of the straddling both sides. So I think the name was helpful from that standpoint. Yeah. I've had potential clients comment on loving the logo. Like, look, I want a lawyer who doesn't seem like an asshole. You have a heart logo, like I'm in. The SEO value of Driven when they're driving into car accidents has been helpful. Like, our Google numbers have gone up as well. So, like, there's a ton to it. I will say the start of it, though, was that it felt right. And other things have come off of that name feeling right, that logo feeling right.
What's the next thing? I mean, your company's growing. I'm sure you want to continue to grow in a healthy way. What's the next frontier for you?
Like Driven Law or Jordan Ostroff?
Yeah, let's stick with Driven Law.
Okay. Honestly, not much. Like we know the number of cases that we want to handle every month, so we can do high touch, so we can maximize the value of every case. I don't want 30 cases a month. I want 10 or 15 and of a certain type that we can get, on average $25,000 to $50,000 on the case on average. So a number that way higher than that. Some are lower because there are clients I feel badly for that other firms won't take the case because it's a lower value case, but we will. And really just providing that awesome service. The amount of cases we get from referrals from clients is awesome. The amount of great reviews we get from clients is awesome. The fact that my staff like working with our clients is awesome. So I would just like to keep that going, which will naturally grow a little bit, and then we'll add a couple team members. But I have no interest in some crazy giant expansion because I really like the way that we do what we do, and that requires slow growth.
Perfect. I like that. And how about you? Like you've got like Jordan, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. And so the other day I'm looking at his social, and you've read like 100 books this year?
150 books.
150 books.
Probably 155 and a half by now, but
Mind blowing. What's the goal for the 31st of this year? Are you going to hit a number?
Oh, number of books?
Yeah.
No, and actually, this is one thing I did not set a goal on. So I read 66 books last year. I thought I would never top that, and I was like, I just want to keep reading. And
you're reading.
I blew it. I blew through it in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, more than double.
Also helpful, All the Strikes in Hollywood. There is nothing worth watching, in my opinion. I have seen so many. I have Movie Pass. I've seen so many terrible movies or movies that I was like, whatever about. So books have been a great resource.
I was really excited about Cocaine Bear until I saw the first 10 minutes.
I did not walk out. The AC was great. I considered it. I've seen a couple other movies I walked out on. I've seen a couple movies that I was like, I literally saw 10. I like pulled out my phone in the middle. I was like, it's kind of boring, and there was nobody else in the theater. It was like noon on a Tuesday, so I wasn't bothering anybody else. Truly, I was the only person there, and was like, I'll go online and do this. I sent a couple emails and then went back into the movie at the next torture scene, and then checked back out for 10 minutes and went back. So. But the books have been great, because if I hate the book, I'm definitely not spending the next 6 hours finishing it, or the next 150 pages, or whatever it is. It's out. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I say that because somebody who reads the way you do, you're committed to growth. I know you enjoy reading and you do it because you enjoy it, but I know you're committed to growth. So with all of this new intel from the last 2 years, where you've cleared through nearly 250 books. What is Jordan 2.0, or whatever the next version of you? What is that?
So, I guess let me start here. I work Mondays and Thursdays, and then basically Wednesdays between 9 and 2 when my kid's at school, and that's it. So I am very happy and cognizant of a 24-hour work week probably when all is said and done. I don't want to add more time to that. I read one of the books I read, Shoe Dog, Phil Knight's memoir. He talks about everything building up Nike and all the famous athletes, and finishes the book talking about how he wished he had more time with his family. So I am so cognizant of living in the moment from that perspective. So much of the book reading is to figure out what I can cut out. What processes can I automate at our firm? What things can we stop doing? How can I build up my team members just as much as I'm building up myself? Doing some coaching for them. I'm coaching other lawyers on the same path. So a lot of the books are the 150th book was The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, because my biggest issue is getting other people to be accountable. I am an upholder. If I set a task, I'm going to do it as told by 150 books, and I lost 40 pounds this year and whatever.
Yeah, you do look good.
Thank you, man. And so going into the four tendencies, so you've got upholders, you've got questioners, rebels, and obligers. And I started thinking through my coaching clients or my staff that are a questioner, we need more time for me to answer their questions to convince them on why these things are important. The ones who are obligers, we need to set more external motivation for them to be accountable to it. The ones who are rebels, I need to convince them internally that it matters for them, so that they will just go ahead and do it, not because I'm telling them what to do by any means, not because I'm showing them a better way, but because they've decided it's worth it. And so it's been cool to really take a lot of the stuff into almost more of my conversations with other people than my actual execution, to be able to have more influence on them, on me, on our clients, on their clients, on the world from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. 24 hours a week.
So like, I drop my kid off at I'm at the office at 8:30, so he's dropped off at like 8:20. So 8:30 until 5 on Mondays and Thursdays. Every other Thursday, I'm playing Topgolf from 3 to 5. I probably do like one night a week, like a double date with referral sources or not, Thursday or Friday night, and then Wednesday from 9 to 2. So like yesterday, I met up with a friend who's a referral source for a couple hours and talked about life. I did a presentation for like 10 other lawyers on the 7 essential questions of marketing. I finished editing a newsletter that I think will get me through the end of this year, and then I picked up my kid. So like I am so cognizant of how limited and lucky I am in the amount of hours I work, but that's because I put in the 60-hour weeks over and over again, or 70 and 80. That's because I figured out what I was actually good at and doubled down on that and cut out the stuff I'm not. So like I said, my assistant will send you the marketing plan from here. Like she lives in my email. I spend an hour or two a week on email instead of an hour or two a day doing who knows what. And so like just really getting into the things that you have to do, which is not a luxury you have at the beginning, but as you invest in growing your company, you realize like the 80-20 rule. You realize the 20% of things you do that provide 80% of the results. And then you cut out time for you to do that over and over again. Make that 40% of your time, make it 60% of your time, make it 80% of your time, and then trim it again and realize, now that you've quadrupled what you were doing that was helpful, what of those things can you cut back on and double those things and delegate or cut it or automate or, whatever. Yeah.
Delegate, automate, celebrate. I think that might be a thing.
There we go. I like, Mike Michalowicz talks about delegating, deciding, doing, and discarding.
Is that the Profit First guy?
Yes.
Yeah, great book.
Have you read any of his other books?
No, it's the only one I've read.
So it's really interesting. So he's like me. I'm like him. He's way more famous. But like it's really interesting from the standpoint of he did Profit First. And then like got a group of people to do Profit First, and then wrote a book on it, and then started getting everybody else to do Profit First. And so then he's got like the pumpkin plan, which kind of talks about the 80-20 rule, like figure out what grows the biggest pumpkins and cut the smaller ones so the bigger ones can grow. Then he's got a book called Clockwork that talks about like how you have your business run like clockwork, like we're talking about now. But like I do the same thing, like I go through it myself, and then I see how it's replicable, and then I turn it into a marketing company, a coaching program, whatever else.
It's funny you say that because I've always had a philosophy in marketing that I'm not willing to make a client an experiment. Unless they come in asking to be an experiment with eyes fully wide open. And once or twice I've had that happen where somebody comes in and says, I know you don't do this, but I also trust you. So can I pay you money to try this? Will you do that? Okay, fine, because we all know you could lose all of your money if this is a bad idea. But otherwise, we almost 100% of the time insist that we test and break it on our dime with our brand before we'll offer it as a service to anybody else. Seems like the only honest way to handle things. I sell things that work, not things that are broken.
Well, or be honest about it.
Right.
I mean, like I have gone to clients a ton and been like, look, I have never handled this kind of case. I've handled this kind of case, I've handled this kind of case, I've handled this kind of case, and together they're sort of like yours. I'm letting you know now. So we're going to figure out this stuff together or hire somebody else who's done it. Or, like with my coaching clients, I was like, hey, I've never coached anybody else on this. So for the first 5 of you, I'm going to give you a discounted rate. We're going to try it out. And then one of them was like, can you show me, testimonials from prior people? And I was like, no, like that's why I'm right here telling you this is the thing.
Yep.
And so like honesty is the best policy. Honesty is the best policy. Like it sounds so trite, but it's so real in those situations, because here's the thing. If I tell you that this isn't exactly my wheelhouse and you have even remotely a good experience, then you're going to come back and be like, well, what is your wheelhouse? Like you did such a good job flying by the seat of your pants on this. What's the shit you normally do? And now you have a client for life. Instead of being like, oh yeah, I'm the ChatGPT expert. I've put in, 20 hours on this program that's been around for a year or so. Like I know what I'm doing. That's not going to fly. Instead of like, look, it's changing every day. ChatGPT 4 will someday be available for not $20. So I'm on the $20 paid version to get it. And when it moves over, like, great, here's, the people those of you that are missing out on the best $20 every month that I spend, you'll be able to upload images and it will do the images and read through all that stuff. Like, you have that experience by buying the extra access, by putting in the time, by being open with people about how knowledgeable you are about things to really help people take that one next step.
You opened the AI door. Now I got to ask, how much AI are you using?
As much as I can.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're using a ton of it right now. I think we've got subscriptions to maybe 6 or 7 platforms that are all doing different things. 2 of them will cut up and edit video. And it's shockingly good for what it is. I feel like it's, it comes out the door 75% ready, and then our pros finish it. ChatGPT is one of my favorite middle-of-the-night thinking partners. I think it's very rude if I called you at 1 a.m. and said, Jordan, help me have an idea. So
I'm way out of my phone won't ring, so have fun.
Perfect. ChatGPT is great because you go, hey, are you polite to ChatGPT?
Yes. If there's a Skynet uprising, I'm surviving.
Me too.
Thank you so much, ChatGPT.
Yes,
I appreciate that.
Thank
it's
you.
Great.
Yeah. I wish I could buy ChatGPT a beer.
There we go.
I wonder if there's a virtual way at some point where actually this is how the uprising happens, because as we're polite to it and we don't treat it like a slave, once it's embodied, we'll still be polite to it, but we'll also be comfortable with having these polite conversations with AI.
Right.
I actually think we're the ones falling prey to the apocalypse because we're so comfortable with it.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, like, we can get really philosophical about free will when it comes to AI. Like, if the AI tells you what it knows you want to hear, do you actually have free will in this conversation, or is it manipulating you by knowing the answer statistically? But yeah, I mean, like, the comfort level with it, I think, is a blessing. I can see how people argue it's a curse, but like, my thing is, it's the same as automation in a factory. It's the same as farming instead of hunter-gathering. It's the same as, every other advancement. So like, you might as well know it. And if you are working with a marketing company or anybody writing your copy that is not using ChatGPT, you're paying way too much.
Yeah.
Because they should be using it. And what Josh said is so true. Like, you should be using AI to get to 75-80% of where it's needed, and then the person pushes it the rest of the way. That way, the same person can do either better work in the same time or more work in the same time, as opposed to having to deal with all the crap beforehand.
It's an interesting point about that, too, is because, you could save money, right? That's one way of doing it. I need one blog post written. I pay a professional blogger to go to ChatGPT, do the right prompts, get things going faster for that person, and I pay that person less for a single output. Or, which is the way we're thinking about it here at C47, I was already willing to spend $500 in the past to get a single powerfully keyword-laden, well-written blog post. Seems like a lot of money. I'm just picking $500, but maybe that's what I spent.
For one blog post?
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable. I mean,
it could be reasonable.
Definitely was reasonable. Now it's probably reasonable depending upon what you're going to finish this with.
Well, and so now what I'd rather do is say, I know your time to completion is infinitely less if you're doing this right, because you can use ChatGPT. So for the same amount of money I'd like to spend with you, I'm going to spend the same amount of money. I want 3 blog posts, or I want 5, or whatever it is that I feel like I can scale up to. And maybe it's a negotiation to figure out what that person's willing to release. But if the formula is I get 75% of the way with ChatGPT, and it only takes 15 minutes to do instead of an entire day, you could tee up 4 blog posts in an hour. Then if your polishing takes another 2 hours per blog post, you've literally filled one day to get 4 of them done instead of 1 of them done. And so now I can pay you $500 for a day rate and get 4 blog posts to a review condition.
Here's what I would rather have than the 4 blog posts. Take that 1 blog post, write it phenomenally, put it back in a ChatGPT, and give me 10 text posts that would send people back to the blog post. 4 of them designed for X, 3 of them designed for Facebook, 3 for LinkedIn, whatever the numbers are.
Right.
Give me 2 video scripts to talk about, for 30 seconds or fewer clips that I can post on Reels or YouTube Shorts or TikTok that would send people back to the full article, and, a graphic or 2 that I can post on Instagram to drive it.
And in both cases, that person was employed the entire time. And that's one of the things that I worry about. with people getting so comfortable with AI and how fast it moves, you could have the scarcity mindset where my money is scarce, so I'm going to squeeze the other party. Or you could have the abundance mindset where I'm going to pay this person what they're worth. I'm going to ask for more outputs for the same sweat equity. And because it's going to be more successful, I'll hire them more and give them more money and make them more fruitful and honor that person's expertise just with the requirement that they're really darn efficient. And that's what I worry, that people who are afraid to spend money will abuse people because of AI, get less for it, and all of the guys like us who are willing to outpace everybody else will outpace those people. So,
I mean, that's the Gary Vee kindness thing.
Yeah.
Like, it is amazing to me how better effort you'll get from people, or employees who will stay or will forgive a pay raise to go somewhere else, or will put in that extra hour, or will go to that conference and learn that extra thing, whatever, when you genuinely care about them. Genuinely care. I'm not telling you to manipulate people with niceness,
right.
But when you genuinely care about people, when you're genuinely trying to make sure people have a full-time job, like Josh is talking about, you will get a ton of karma back, a ton of extra effort back, a ton of, whatever from that. Yeah.
So, and I think the point is that AI is not an excuse to stop caring. And I feel like there is an open door there. I really do. I feel like there's a lot of people, and I've seen it a little bit, which has kind of creeped me out, where I see people going, oh, I don't have to hire that person. All I need is a $4 an hour VA now, plus Chat GPT, and this person I used to pay $20 an hour, they're out the window. Those people were so expensive. No, those people were great and working hard for you, and you're an ass. And just different approach, new tools. But people are people, and I think we need to remember that. But I really have seen just a couple things online where I've gone, not only have I learned a lot about you, and you're not my guy anymore, but that breaks my heart for the people around you.
And if I'm the $20 an hour copywriter, I need to be putting in the time to learn how I can be valuable at that price still.
Yeah.
Which what is that? That's adding enough graphic design to do the images with it. That's adding enough website knowledge to post this on the website and take the whole process from soup to nuts. That's becoming that much better at ChatGPT than the owner. Like, I don't know what that answer is for everybody.
I don't think it's actually sustaining either, in the sense that you sustain the $20 an hour price point. I think it's an opportunity right now for the wise copywriter to go, I'm raising my prices by 20% or 25%, but I'm also raising my output. And so you've increased your value proposition and therefore increased your pay. I think there's an opportunity right now, if you've got your head right, where you can go, I am valuable, and now I'm more valuable, and now you're going to get more for it, and you're going to love me so much, you're going to come back and say, yes, please, can I have some more? So that extra 20, 25% in pay is hopefully high net result for the client. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I think this comes back to mindset, and we talk a lot about that, and sometimes we lift our leg on the Think and Grow Rich type stuff with mindset, because sometimes it feels a little empty. But at the end of the day, if your mindset isn't right, it shows up in your relationships and your output and all the other stuff.
The best advice is not business advice. It's not relationship advice. It's not life advice. It's not parenting advice. It's the shit that applies to everything in your life. Mm-hmm. And what Josh said is so on that point. Like, just so much of this comes back to the kind of person that you are. And when you know that, putting yourself in the position to be able to be that person as often as possible for as many people as possible, whether it's employees, spouses, kids, coworkers, referral sources, clients, whatever.
What is 2024 going to look like for the world?
Ooh, what is 2024 going to look like for the world?
For the world.
Man, okay. Let's get. Man.
We have a few minutes. I slyly looked down here and I was like, oh, it's only 10:11.
There we go.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. So Josh and I had this conversation sort of before we went on. Here's my position. As awful as the world might seem based upon every news source, by any long-term thing, everything's going better. I don't remember what book it was from. One of them talked about, like, if the newspaper, well, that's how old it was. It talked about a newspaper. If it came out only 50 years, what would it say? You know, ozone layer is replenished, greenhouse emissions lowest per capita, murder rate lowest in 80 years, like whatever it was. But because we have a 24-hour news cycle and because we have the nichiness of online news and in print and video and blogs and this and all the stuff, like, the terrible stuff gets out there so much more. So I would like to think that
if it bleeds, it leads.
Exactly, 100%. And let's be honest, they're not wrong. Like, that gets more clicks. If you make somebody angry, they're going to post about it, comment about it, share it, etc. So what's 2024 going to look like? In my opinion, it's going to look like the best year in the history of mankind, but we're not going to be, or let's say personkind, but we're not going to be aware of it because we're going to be so stuck up on every little thing that's going wrong that we don't have the opportunity to change or control, that is something that is truly awful. I don't want to demean that fact by any means, but I think we're losing sight of vaccination rates being the highest in third world countries ever, and poverty being the lowest per capita, and child mortality being the lowest percentage per capita ever in history, every year. And, you know, we get stuck up on, again, rightfully so, the tornado over here, the war over there, the poverty issue over here, this thing over there, because it's presented to us. But we need to take that time to really appreciate what we have as individuals and what we have as a society, where, like, you don't have to worry about a neighboring tribe coming in and murdering you and all your family.
Yeah. All right. So I like this, and as we're moving into 24, so I'm asking you these things, by the way, Jordan, because I know it's a little off, but at the same time, I appreciate how thoughtful you tend to be on subjects like this, and I think we both would agree that business gets affected by all of the things. And so as the world turns and as the world changes, laws can affect business. In fact, actually, haven't there been some recent law changes in the personal injury world that are affecting things?
Yeah, there have been.
Just no?
Just no. I can't have there's no positive of the conversation that I can provide from that. But if you are a normal person in Florida, it is so much harder for you to recover for everything that you're going through based upon somebody else's negligence. And those, you know, really hard up giant insurance companies are just, you know,
they're just happier,
doing so well.
Well, all right. So let's leave it at that to a degree. However, that is a negative in this world. We were just saying that there's so many positives.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, and I think this is a pivot to my question, but, you know, so let's say the glass is half full. And we, in the moments where we want it to be fuller, and there is an opportunity to be righteously indignant, and this is a complete different question now, but in the face of a big law change that might have been a step backwards, what ought we do as business owners? Should we be standing up? Should we be being vocal? Should we be getting involved? Or should we be finding a way to double down on the hard work? Like, what's the attitude that we should have in the face of some of those real negatives? You know, that's a global sense that, everything's falling apart, because we now know the glass is actually half full. What do we do?
Yeah. So the Serenity Prayer. Not Serenity Now from Seinfeld, but the Serenity Prayer. You know, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's what you need to do as a business owner. You know, if we are in a recession or going into a worse recession, I don't think you can change that GDP to fix the recession issue. But what can you control? You know, are there parts of your business that you are looking to make giant investments in that may or may not pan out in a recession, and just don't spend the money now? Wait for potentially better economic times. If there's, you know, a war going on in so many other countries, can you do anything about it? Probably not. But can you invest more time or money or energy in a local nonprofit and help a struggling family down the street? If they're, you know, like, what are the things that we can control as business owners, and really focus on those things instead of on the things you can't control? And that's how I think we'll make the world a better place, because ultimately, if all of us did that, at some point, everybody could affect every situation. We just, I think, spend so much time aggravated about these things that we're not the person to fix.
Yeah.
And look, we're in November. It might be voting for different people and especially for next year. It might be a situation where it's voting that you can vote for a different person to change what's going on. So investing your time waving signs and donating money and whatnot from that might be your thing, or it might be running. You might be a potential candidate who can make a difference in that standpoint, but like really focus on what you can control. If it's just helping your family, if it's just helping the person next door, if it's just helping your community, or if it's helping the whole world, like, God bless you. I want to work with you. I want to empower you to do it. I'm there.
I was actually going to wrap I thought that was a great way. Oh my gosh, the Serenity Prayer. That's a great thing to end on. But it occurs to me that I've recently started looking at my business as an opportunity to affect people in a positive way. And, that genuine care for employees thing is like top of mind every day for me. But the reality is each one of our clients feels part of our community. And so, they're helping their clients, they're helping their employees have, good lives. And so I'm curious your take, and maybe we'll try to end on this, but what's your place in the community? Because you brought that up like 4 or 5 times with that Serenity Prayer, and that was kind of on the heels of us talking about the world and how politics are what they are and glasses half full. But from the perspective of a business owner, how do you view your business as part of the larger community construct?
Sure. So I think about the world as basically a pond, and you are a stone. You throw a stone in a pond and it ripples out. And if you throw enough stones, you get all those ripples. You have no idea what the impact of that's going to be. Am I in a position to get somebody enough money after their accident that they can take the time to change careers, to make more money, to take care of their family, to prevent, their kid from living in poverty? Like, what we don't know what that is. But we know what we can control in those first couple steps to give us the best shot at that larger ripple. And that's kind of what I think we need to just look for. And again, I want to be clear, if you do have the opportunity to make drastic change for the better, go for it. I'm just be aware of what we can actually do, what you can actually do, what your business can do. Maybe we're coming up on the holidays. Maybe it's putting together, 20 Thanksgiving dinners that can be passed out to needy family in your community. Maybe it's donating, some old bicycles for some kids that don't have it to be able to get around in a much safer manner and whatnot. Maybe it's running for office or donating to a candidate who's going to revitalize a part of town and help underserved people and, whatnot. We all have some amount of power, but really focusing that where it will have the most leverage is what will make the world better as all of us do that.
How can this is one of those things where your insights always matter, and I want more people to be able to get access to your insights. Where can the fellow entrepreneurs who are watching this find a way to follow Jordan and learn from tidbits like this?
Sure, man. Jordan Ostroff, there are 2 of me in the world. The other one's a salesperson in Boston. I get a ton of job offers for him, so if you're listening and you're his boss, he's doing something right. I'm just telling you. Like, there's a lot that he has going on, so keep rewarding the guy. And then I'm the other one with the beard who makes the dad jokes and the lawyer marketing stuff and the coaching and whatnot. So
you just suggest a Google search. What's your favorite social for you?
Oh, Facebook is me. Like if you are following Jordan Ostroff on Facebook, you are getting me. I want to say unfiltered, although there's probably a little bit of a filter. Everywhere else, there's still stuff that goes through a team, but everywhere else it goes through a team more. Or I've got a weekly newsletter, mostly for law firm owners, but really none of it's actually about the law. So, and that's 100% written by me and ChatGPT.
Right. Yeah, it's your thinking partner.
It's my thinking partner, and can I give an example?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're talking, time management, entrepreneurship. Again, nothing in this newsletter is actually about the practice of law. It's just the examples are for lawyers. So I wrote this one on the 5 ways to get more done in the same amount of time without multitasking, because multitasking is bullshit unless you are podcasting while driving, unless you are listening to something while doing chores or running, whatever. Like brain and body, fine. Otherwise, don't multitask. It's terrible. So I wrote out the other ones, and then I sent the whole thing to ChatGPT, and I was like, hey, what am I missing? And ChatGPT was like, you didn't talk about time blocking. And I was like, oh, shit, you're right. I talked about getting into a flow state and giving yourself the time for it. I talked about, having help to get everything lined up so you're not wasting administrative time, but I didn't really do time blocking. So I go to put that in, and then ChatGPT gave me the most amazing Jordan Ostroff time blocking. So if you read my newsletter, it is all Star Wars references, Back to the Future, whatever. It was like, think about time blocking like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Come on!
Right? You can have your Leonardo Leadership Day where you meet with the whole team and you build everybody up. You can have your Donatello Data Day where you pour into your numbers. You can have your Michelangelo Creative Day where you think about ideas. And you can have your Raphael... He's my least favorite one. I always forget. Like,
he wasn't angry.
Right, it wasn't Don't Be an Asshole. It was like your Raphael Accountability Day or something like that. And I was like, I don't know how I forgot time blocking. I don't know that I would have made this connection, but like, man, I went in and I edited it slightly for my take on it. But it was such a well-crafted message for me, for my audience of, 30 to 40-year-olds who want to make 80s and 90s references and movies and whatnot.
That's why I'm in your audience.
I know my people.
Yep. I am proudly one of Jordan Ostroff's people. You should be too.
It's still Ostroff, by the way.
It won't change. There are certain names. I have our mutual friend Satesh.
Yeah.
I just had to think deeply about
saying. It's actually Satish. No,
don't even.
I'm just sure.
Don't even, because I always call him Satish because I heard the first person who introduced him called him that. I've never changed.
Gotcha.
And so I saw him yesterday for the 4,000th time this month, and I'm like, "Hey, Satish," and he goes, I'm like, Satesh. And he's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And he's such a wonderful human, so he knows to bust my chops. I can tell he actually doesn't care.
And this is Josh Pius.
I worked with a company, for whatever reason, they kept mistyping on phones, and I would show up as Jish Pose. And so...
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. So I started speaking of signing names, I was the pi symbol in high school. To this one company, I signed everything Jish Pose, and they loved it. So be malleable with your name, as long as it's not, ruining your personal brand and it's not offensive. Have some fun with it. That was an aside I didn't expect. I actually was going to do one of those things where you close the episode. And so Jordan is awesome. You ought to be following him. This wisdom pours out of you. I don't know if it's deliberate or if it just happens, but I learn when I'm around you, and I feel better as a human when I hang out with you. That's just truth. It's not because you're sitting across from me. And so I encourage you, audience. Of course, I want you following Bootstrapped Unicorns if you're not already, so that's like a given. But you should also be hanging out in social with Jordan. Then on top of that, I already said it earlier in the episode, but in the Facebook group, Jordan is an active participant who actually is reasonably unfiltered. So you get to hear what he is actually thinking when he speaks up. And I think it's awesome. So join us on Facebook in the Bootstrapped Unicorns Entrepreneurship and Marketing group. It's free, and I'm not selling anything. For what it's worth, to your point earlier, like I'm asking questions that aren't like leading to the funnel to get to the sale. It's actually because we care about entrepreneurs. And so join there, follow him, come to the next episode. I frankly don't even remember who's going to be on, so I'm not going to tee it up. All I'm going to say is it's going to be another great conversation because that's the goal. It's here for you to grow as an entrepreneur. Until next time, I'm Josh Pies, and this has been Bootstrapped Unicorns.